Hello everyone, DaveDev here. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to configure XAMPP to allow SSL connections on your local Apache web server to basically test your website applications to use secure connections. For this purpose, we are going to use Apache. For this purpose, we are going to assume that you have followed my previous videos about how to configure a virtual host and that you have everything installed and set up and ready to go. So what are we going to do next is go from our previous video where we created a example virtual host that I have here working. As you can see, it says here that it's not secure because it's using the HTTP connection without any kind of SSL connection. But we are going to change this now. So as you can see in XAMPP, we can use the port 80, which is a normal HTTP connection, and the port 443, which is the HTTPS connection. So the port is already listening, but we are not currently using. So what we need to do next is go to our installation folder and we will need to go to Apache. Okay, so we will look for where we set up our virtual host, which is in httpd virtual host conf, and edit it with our editor. Okay, as you can see here, I have my previous configuration for the virtual host. And what I'm going to do next is extend this to allow the port 443. So what I will do is just copy and paste this and change the port to be 443. Now, if we save this and restart Apache and try to go to the website, by default, it will use the HTTP connection, so we will need to change this to HTTPS. And as you can see, it says here that this site can provide a secure connection. Why is this? This is basically because we are missing an SSL certificate, and we are going to work on that right now. So if we go back to our installation folder, we are going to create a certificate for our website. So this is mandatory. If you want to have a secure connection, you need to have a certificate. However, we are going to create our own certificate that is only going to be used on our local machine. So please bear this in mind, because this certificate is not supposed to be used on a live server. So don't try to do that because it's not safe, and you should use a proper certificate generation. There are multiple options for that, but please don't use this version for it. So if we go back to our installation folder and we go to Apache, luckily we have a tool for creating a certificate, which is in here. However, this has some issues because the modern browsers need specific parameters on the certificate to allow them to be valid. Unfortunately, the tool is a little bit outdated, so we need to change it a little bit. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create a new file. We're going to call it v3.ext. Okay, and just edit it. Okay. So what this file is going to do is we are going to add additional parameters to the create certificate tool, which is basically the domain name for our website. Just copy and paste this and change the following. So the first DNS is going to be localhost because we are working from our machine. And then the second and third DNS are going to be our domain. So in our case was dev.example.com. And here the same, dev.example. XAMPP.com. So we save this, and then what we will do next is tell our tool to use the extension. So I have it here already. You should probably have only this. So just write this down, and this is basically telling to use the file that we created before to specify the DNS for the certificate. So just save this, and we are going to execute now the tool. Okay, so the first thing that it's asking is for a passphrase. You don't need to worry very much about this. I'm just going to call it certificate, and then repeat it again, certificate. Okay, and now it's going to ask you a couple of questions about the website, where it's located, and what is the company and everything. If you don't want to, you can leave it empty. It doesn't really affect the domain certificate, but you need to stop in here where it says common name. So this is basically asking what is the actual name of the website that is going to use this certificate. In my case, it's going to be devsample.com. And the email address, you can leave it empty. Challenge password, I'm just going to call it cert. This can be empty, and then here again, certificate, and there you go. Now, as you can see, it has generated successfully the certificate, but where is it? So you don't need to worry. I already looked for it. So it is, by default, it's in these two folders. This is going to override every time that you use the tool. It's going to save it on the same place. So what I like to do is just to create here a folder where I save all my certificates. So every time you generate one certificate, you just move it here. So I'm going to call it cert. And then I'm going to put the name of my website, which is going to be devsample.com. Okay, and in here we're going to put all the files needed for the certificate, which are in here, called server CRT. Where was it? Here. And paste it. And the other one, which is the key, server.key. And here. Okay. So we have this now. Now what we need to do is, because this certificate is only local to our machine, we need to say to Windows, in my case, that this certificate is ours and it's valid. And for doing that, we just need to double click it and install the certificate. We put it here in our local machine, say yes to the prompt. And then we select this option, which is place all certificates in the following store, and select the trusted root certification authorities. This will basically look for all the certificates that we have on our machine. And if we have one that it's valid for that specific domain, it will try to use it. And then finish, and it's installed now. Okay. So we are almost there. The next thing that we need to do is to tell our virtual host that we need to use this particular certificate here. So we go back to the HTTPD virtual host, and in the 443 section, we just need to do the following. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is specify that we are going to use SSL connection. So for that, we just specify SSL engine on. Now, we need to specify the paths of the certificate file and the key file. So for that, we specify here SSL certificate file, and then between commas, we just specify the file, which is crt, crt dev example.com server.crt. Okay, and now the key file, SSL Certificate key file, and crt dev example.com server.key. Okay, so with this, it should work now. So what we need to do is restart Apache. Sorry, I pasted this wrong. So it's cert. So we try to start it again. Okay, and we go to here, HTTPS. Okay, and there you go. It's valid. Okay, and there's one last thing that this part is optional, but if you want to, I think it's quite useful because by default you should try to always use the HTTPS connection that you can see in our URL. But what happens if you go to the HTTP? As you can see, it doesn't try to go to the HTTPS connection. So we can have a little trick here to change that. We go back to the HTTPD virtual host and go to the AT section. What we can put here is a redirection command. How do we do that? So we just use a rewrite engine. Okay, this will make the virtual host to use the rewrite engine tool that will help us to redirect the user to the HTTPS connection at any given point. And for that, we need to specify the conditions. So rewrite cond. And here we specify a variable server name. This is basically going to take the URL and just paste it here and try to see if the URL is the same as example.com. So it's basically an if-else condition. So it's trying to see if the current URL is the same as this one. And then we put an or because this can be different. And take this again. And remove the www. Okay. So the conditions is basically if the current website that we are navigating is this one, or if it's this one, then do the following, which is going to be a write rule. We use this symbol and then specify that we want to redirect to the HTTPS version, and then the name, server name. You could specify here the actual URL, but this one is fine as well. And then concatenate, and then the request URI. And this is like the URL that is going to be next from the server name. So for example, let's say that you are in this URL, devexample.com. So this is actually the server name variable. And then what comes after the server name is going to be the request URI, which is, for example, some folder index HTML. So this is going to be the request URI. Okay, so let's continue. And then Okay. I'm not completely sure what this does, but I believe it's just some parameters for the redirection rule. But basically, in general, what we are saying is that we are going to redirect something, and we are redirecting on these conditions and redirecting to the HTTPS version on the actual URL with the current URI. So this shouldn't affect the user in any point, because he will be redirected to the exact same point of the website, but on the HTTPS version. So just to test this, we stop it and start the Apache server. Oh, it seems that we have a problem. Okay, it doesn't allow spaces, so be very careful about this. We start it again, and there you go. Be careful that inside of these brackets, it doesn't allow any kind of white spaces. Okay, so we go back here. We see that we currently are on the HTTP version of the website, and now we are on the HTTPS version. So we have been redirected from the HTTP to the HTTPS. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for staying until the end. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and give a like if you like the content. Thank you, and see you on the next one.